Go live right now.
Do it now.
Your mother.
Yes, we're live with your mother. Yes. How's it going, guys? It's well, I'm back here. I'm awake. Zach's awake. Breen's
For now.
in dreamland. He sees his nightmare.
You are my nightmare.
Oh, I'm somebody's nightmare. Oh, I feel so loved. Tonight we're talking about two fantastic issues. Roy Thomas and George Perez drew both of them. It's pretty kind of cool.
Yes, indeed.
The art and just the whole story plot of this. Everybody talks about Hulk versus Thing. I think that's what issue that is, but I like this was kind of cool. Hulk and Thing team up against the Fantastic Four, and then an unexpected kind of twist towards the end. And I just love everything, the dialogue, everything, and it's just so great. The art's great, storytelling's great. It is. I can see why people like early Fantastic Four. And
not so early. They've been around for 15 years.
Wait.
Do they have a kid at this point?
Yes.
No.
Franklin.
Wait. Yeah,
Franklin was born like in issue 82 or something. Well, he was born in an annual.
But who's watching him though?
Hold on.
Agatha.
Okay.
We need to. We're talking about Fantastic Four. We need to introduce the fourth member of our panel.
But hold on, real quickly. Batman. If I'm everyone's nightmare, then I'm Batman's nightmare. Then
I'm Batman,
or I am Batman. Anyway, yes, our fourth, the Invisible Woman, who's not here right now. Comics.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, there you go. I heard that RDV.
So
I like that. I'll be the Invisible Woman.
So he's the Invisible Woman
because we can't see him.
I know. Gee, I know which one I am. So which one of you is the Flamer?
Well, you're Mr. Fantastic, right?
Look at the guys wearing the deep V. I think that might be the cute.
Joke's on you. The Human Torch is my favorite anyway, so I still win.
Yes,
so that means you're Mr. Fantastic.
I'm Reed Richards.
Or you're the Thing.
I'm Reed Richards, and I'm pro gun.
Oh, okay.
Hey.
Well, Zach is the youngest and best looking, so he's got to be Storm, and RDV's kind of the grouchiest, so he's got to be Reed.
Well, the Thing is the grouchiest.
Or maybe he's that.
Breen is the smartest, so Breen.
Sorry, maybe I meant to say the most verbally abusive.
Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah.
RDV, since I'm Invisible Woman.
RDV is RDV. RDV smash. All right. I gotta ask real quick before we get into this. I know, Breen, this is your probably 15 or more times. You probably read this a lot, these issues, over the years.
Yeah, and I've also probably said this on YouTube 15 times. 167 was the first Marvel comic I bought new.
I do remember you saying that, yeah.
Zach, this is your first time reading it?
First time.
What about you, Ash?
This was my first time, too.
Mine, too. All right.
So I am now an expert to give a 40-year retrospective of this book.
Well, we all are. That's why we're able to do this now. We take one read of it.
Breen read it for the first time. He remembers it.
No, actually, no. I know you were trying to make a joke at the old man's expense here.
I would never make a joke at your expense. I'd make it at my expense.
Well, you should. Those early comics from 1976. Yeah, my memory for that is scary accurate, considering I can't tell you what I had for lunch today. I wouldn't be able to if I hadn't forgotten it when I left. But so I wish I had. I've got the two issues somewhere. They could be in one of any number of 40-something short boxes that are surrounding me in this.
I think I'll get them right here.
In this fire trap. So I had to read it. And Zach, you might want to cover your eyes. I read it in this.
Ooh. Hold on a second. Let me full screen that for you.
That's pretty. Is that the This Man, This Monster thing in the back? It looks like...
it's him pouting because he's been replaced. This is the cover to Fantastic Four 168.
Okay.
And because the next three issues after this, which I said we ought to follow this up with, are the three issues where Power Man is on the team
Yeah.
And
because what happens to Ben at the end of
the end of
it
this
gets
issue,
taken over by the Puppet Master. But one of the reasons I wanted to do this was 1976 for the Fantastic Four. Started with a Thing Hulk fight that turns into a Thing Hulk team up.
Mm-hmm.
He supposedly permanently turned back into Ben Grimm. Power Man joins the team. From there it's a 5-part Galactus Counter Earth storyline, and then you've got a 1-month break with the Impossible Man invading the Marvel Comics offices, then right into a Frightful Four storyline. So you couldn't have picked a better year to jump onto the Fantastic Four.
And I gotta laugh because we just did a retrospective on the Secret Wars, and there's when Ben turned, the Thing turned back into Ben. He didn't hold his underwear, and he's holding his britches up.
Well, see, Reed. No, there's a reason for that. It was never explained, but Reed learned from that embarrassing episode. Although, if you're Reed, you're not embarrassed by anybody else's. Let's be honest. But he probably invented some unstable molecules for Ben just in case this happened again.
Because I'm laughing. He's so sitting there holding his britches up, and I'm like, "Can we go now?"
Your trousers, huh? I mean, the city ain't X-rated,
That was a great line.
I guess,
man, that was one of the funniest issues I've ever read. Back when Marvel could laugh at themselves and could just laugh, period.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
you don't get a lot of that these days.
One of the things that really stood out to me reading this book was just how much fun it has with itself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's not out there trying to be a work of literature. It's just trying to just entertain, and it knows who its audience is, and it's just delivering to that. And I feel probably that this book is still kind of before my time. I don't relate as well. It was refreshing to be like, oh, I kind of miss comics being like this. They're so serious these days. Even like the really, really bad ones, they're like so serious in their badness. You're like, for example, think of a Tom King book. You're just like, does that guy ever smile? No, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right.
There's no fun, period. Like, everyone is just miserable and talking about misery or complaining about someone or explaining how bad something. And here, like, Ben Grimm is like mad about so many things, and he really is kind of like throwing a temper tantrum.
Yeah,
but it's still it's not done in this like sour way. It's kind of funny. It's like they realize what they're doing. And I miss that.
Yeah.
Roy Thomas gets a ton of credit for his contribution to the comic book industry. Like I said, he's on my Mount Rushmore for all the things he's done to preserve the hobby, whether it's the PS Art books, being the creator of Alter Ego, and he has a lot to do with everything Two Mars does, et cetera, et cetera. Where I don't think he gets as much credit as a comic book writer, because that's all his stuff. It's all it is, or it's well-written comic books. He never wrote with an eye towards getting to Hollywood someday. Comics are his love, has been since the early 60s, and remains such to this day. And I think it shows. He just knows how to write an entertaining comic book.
One of the things that stands out to me reading this old Roy Thomas stuff is, and I wonder if that had a big part to play in his position at Marvel that he ultimately got, was how well he fit the Stan Lee mold. Like, when I read his stuff, it's not exactly Stan Lee, but it's like that. And you can tell, like, when I was reading this, I was like, this book was definitely written the old Marvel way, where it was just all illustrated first, and they went in and just wrote dialogue boxes. And that was like what Stan Lee was kind of a master at. It's like, here's a blank book, Stan. He would just be like writing up everything with, and this book had that in spades too. And when I go back and I read a lot of these old books, like growing up, one of the reasons I don't resonate with this era is partly because that's a difficult thing to do. Like, most can't come up to that level. Like, when you read Stan's stuff, back in the 60s and early 70s. It's just a different level to me. Like some of the stuff is just so, like I can't do it. It's too dry. But here, I can see why the Marvel method like took over and became such a big thing.
Okay, well, Roy Thomas in 1965 went to work for DC. Lasted less than 2 weeks. Called Stan Lee and said, "Can I come over there?" And they had lunch, and the rest as is his history. He made it all the way into the Jim Shooter era.
Wow.
And he became basically Stan's protege.
Yeah.
And he was groomed to take over. He ended up being he was editor-in-chief at some point, maybe even a couple times during the 70s. But he definitely learned how to do the Marvel method from Stan, because when Stan started to relinquish some of the books, because he literally was writing the Marvel universe, right, with few exceptions, he turned, I believe, the X-Men over to the Arnold Drake first, but then Roy. I think Avengers went directly from Stan to Roy, and I think there was something else too, but I can't remember. I mean, his name is all over the place as you look through the second half of the 60s.
Yeah, one thing that stood out to me was the whole dialogue and like this, back in the day, as the classic dialogue, the humor in this, the way Ben's drawn, in this, the thing that they get the brow, the unibrow, when he like looks like a freaking like a helmet. His little he does look like a monster, and it's his deep little blue eyes. And then it was really weird just seeing like Ben just yelling at the couple, go get a room, and like the little kids. At first I didn't see their kids standing there. I had to go back and look. Like he just yelled at the parents in front of the kids. I know they were sucking face. Yes.
Hey, honey, how'd you like to say you've been kissed by a real superstar? Love to, sir, but I never let anyone call me honey till the second date. That would you couldn't dream of putting that in a Marvel comic.
Yes.
Yeah, like let's go before he starts beating his chest like a bull gorilla.
And you're muted.
Sorry, I was gonna say that is my favorite face that the thing has ever been drawn having. He looks up and he sees a male steward. What's the world coming to?
Right. And I like I said, this is the style of the culture. You look at the way her Sue's dress is, her blouse she's wearing, and Johnny's
his really weird neck. Is he dating Frankie Ray at the time?
He had his first date with her in 164.
I saw him say Frankie. I was like, I thought that's Frankie Ray.
Just all this, the coloring and just the art and everything, the style, like this is like one of the reasons why I loved reading Spider-Man back then, in the early days, because the bright colors, the way everything's just drawn, like you could tell it's a whole shared universe, the way everybody's drawn, even though they're different artists, but they still keep certain things the way they draw, the background, the way they draw planes, and although this isn't Kirby, this is Perez, and I just like the way he draws the Hulk and the way he draws the thing. Even Richards it's so weird seeing Richards drawn as Michael Douglas falling down.
He almost looks like he should be Nick Fury. He's just missing the eye patch.
That's the thing too. Yeah. It's very similar to Nick Fury, Well,
it wasn't until John Byrne that Reed and Johnny stopped being drawn completely jacked. Now, if I'm Reed and I can make my body do whatever the hell I want it to, that's probably the route I would have gone. Because you're married to a hot chick, you want to look good for her.
Yeah.
Let's say George Perez made Sue look pretty good in this. But Johnny was, especially when Ron Wilson would draw him. Holy crap! Johnny Storm was like Arnold Schwarzenegger, 1980 jacked, and so was Reed. Now you could argue, you live that life, you're going to get in good shape. But these guys, like I said, they were just But so Reed kind of yeah, they did kind of have that look in those days. But if we're to talk about the issue, I did like how they always make it a point to say that the Hulk never killed anybody.
Yeah,
which I always thought was ridiculous. But I mean, right up there with Peter never slept with Gwen, ridiculous. Because if he's just jumping and he accidentally like lands on a plane that's flying,
yes,
Yeah.
Now, at first I would say I know the Hulk can jump, but I didn't know he could jump 30,000 feet in the freaking air.
That's a really big jump. Yeah.
However, but okay, plot armor. But I like how the team came together to land the plane, and the little seed of self-doubt is planted in Ben, just kind of make him feel a little bit alienated. There's really nothing he can do but cheer him on.
Right.
Now, again, if this were a modern comic, they would have stretched this out about 4 or 5 issues. But these days, you had one.
You had one shot.
Yeah, I mean, because you can imagine how much happens in that 5-issue, that 5-part Galactus story later in the year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, that would be an omnibus today.
Dang.
So Ben goes from feeling alienated, kind of sympathizing with the Hulk, because the last time they'd fought, one of these crazy ideas to cure the Hulk put their brains in each other's bodies, and they had a brawl that the Thing finally won a fight against the Hulk because he had the Hulk's savagery in his head. But so and he didn't want another. He remembered that wasn't cool for either one of them. So that's kind of, in case you're wondering why he took that tact to turn on the team for that, is that story was less than 2 years old at the time. I think 3 at the most, which sliding time scale would have been just a couple of months. So it didn't completely come out of left field that Ben would make the choice that he made.
Yeah. Yeah, and you see him like whenever they get picked up by the military, you see like he's starting at this point. Yeah, after the whole plane crash, he's like, "Well, I can't really do anything," and then they get picked up by the military to help out with the Hulk, and you see there's several instances where the Hulk is like, I ain't got much love for him, but he's still a person. He's still kind of playing Hulk's advocate. While all these preparations are being made.
Yeah, and this felt very cliche as far as a bad guy going back on his word, and because that's what happens in this.
Oh, you mean the army guy?
The army guy, yeah. Well, I call him a bad guy because he's a villain in this story.
Yeah, well, that's the best
yes
line.
And no.
I know, but they portray him as being, he's like, yes, he is, but he isn't. The Hulk, yes, is responsible for, because they arrest him for his, I guess, war crimes or whatever.
They never came out and said it was never about arresting him. It was about stopping him. They never really. It's like, okay, then what? It's like when a dog chases a car.
Yeah.
What do they do when they catch it?
Yeah,
that was kind of how I always took the military chase. General Ross chasing the Hulk, but they wanted to, ostensibly to cure him, but they weren't about to take any. They weren't going to take any chances of him turning back into the Hulk, which is exactly what he did. So
yeah,
they kind of left out that part when they were still in read on it.
Only because Ben interfered. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become like the Hulk again.
Yeah.
Or maybe it just would have happened 15 minutes later.
We don't know.
Yeah, because they stopped him, but they hadn't done whatever they were going to do.
Yeah.
So supposedly cure.
So when I say villains, I'm not saying like I'm not really saying villain. He's pretty much the bad guy in that sense, because he had promised he'd let him go after they cured him.
In as much as you had to have a villain.
Yeah.
It's this guy, but was he a villain? I don't think so. If he was guilty of anything, he was guilty of being an asshole.
Yeah. Well,
and that's why they didn't use Thunderbolt Ross, because they wanted somebody to be a young asshole.
Yeah, well, that's what he says. Even he says that he was the youngest full colonel in charge. Yep. So, yeah.
But yeah, so that's my takeaway from that character. As I was like, oh, he went back against word, and then, like that's how they're gonna do this. It's kind of like I've seen this trope done before. So, but he wasn't like a full blown like crazy obsessed. Like he's gotta he's gonna do whatever it takes.
Address him. Ron, it wasn't that the Army was portrayed as villains in the Hulk. Because and everything else not Hulk related, they were still this force for good. It's just they had a Hulk-sized problem on their hands, and a general Thunderbolt Ross was kind of written like J. Jonah Jameson. When you wanted, when it was needed, he would be this bellowing buffoon, but when you needed him to be a straightforward, no nonsense guy, kind of like Jameson when he would be in Daredevil, or that issue we read with the racist politician. Mm-hmm. You find out when he's not obsessing over Spider-Man, yes, he's actually a good person, a good man with conviction. That was kind of the same thing with Thunderbolt Ross. They would just, when they wanted to amplify the obsession with the Hulk side, it was almost like he had a Jekyll and Hyde personality. So I never really thought of the military as being so much the bad guys. It's just that the Hulk was, as much as a 7-foot, 1,000-pound green monster can be the hero of his story, the military was just, to me, kind of like the foil.
Yeah, foil's
back to our regularly scheduled retrospective.
So the very first issue, though, like you said, there was a lot of cool stuff, because seeing Reed stretch himself to that limit, I thought, Mike, he's gonna eventually just gonna rip, because he's got using himself as a parachute to slow down the plane. They got Johnny on the outside, somehow not melting the wing, trying to stop this.
Within a year, he had completely lost his stretching powers.
Wow.
Maybe this is why.
Might have been.
Or we blame it on his wife.
Yeah.
At first, it was he lost it everywhere but one arm. And then he lost that. So that's how the Brute was able to throw him into the negative zone and get to impersonate Reed Richards, because he lost his stretching power. So
now you can see a hint of that, because when he's sitting there and he's like, and Johnny runs up to him, he's like, Reed, are you fine? He's like, yeah, I'm fine, son. I think I'm as right as I'll ever be. And he's sitting there holding his arm, his one arm stretched out. Yeah, so that's why maybe
subplots. Comics used to have them,
right?
That get this, stretched out over
time.
Yeah, a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool.
See what I did there?
That was cool. But I love this. Before this, you see, while this is all going on, there's just two guys in the crowd are on the street where they want to land the plane. They're just driving. Also, a fireball goes in front of your car. Oh my gosh! I probably would have crapped my pants just seeing that scene. Like, big old flame of fall, just ball of flame hitting in front of the car. It is, and then you see this everything down the littlest detail. Even inside, I'm looking inside the plane because George Perez drawing it. I'm like, are those like sissy bars to hang on to because the plane's gonna crash above their heads? There's like two little handles there. I know they're supposed to be like technical things,
Yeah.
But I was just like, that looks like you're gonna hang. So he's hanging on to that because you're gonna.
What
crash.
I thought was gonna happen was they were gonna show that family go into the next cabin and have the little kid look out the window and wave right as Homelander's incinerating the jet.
Oh, no. Oh my goodness. And we managed to bring it back to the boys.
Yeah, you don't get me started on that. We got to keep back on this retrospective.
Heck yeah.
And then, so when they finally get to the base, and they first show Colonel Sellers. He looks like Reed. The way this is drawn, he's Reed without the white hair streak. He looks exactly like Reed. He's just wearing a suit. There's a suit.
That brings me to.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that brings me to a question. Was this was after Burns? Was this after Burns' run on Fantastic Four?
No, this was about 5 years before.
Yeah.
So was the look of this style, was Byrne sort of aping that style, or were people aping Byrne? I have a hard time telling, because by the time I got into comics, Byrne was already kind of a legend.
Well, Byrne's thing was, the first thing he did was change everybody's look except for, well, actually, no, he changed everybody's look.
Yeah.
Because he was on record saying there's no reason why Reed and Johnny should have any muscles. So they overnight had no muscles. The first thing he did with her was went and put her back to her 1962 hairstyle, and then he mutated the Thing back to his 1962 look as well.
Also, Zach, if you can pull up that panel, that picture.
Which one?
The one where we got Breen smoking. Oh wait, Breen's down there.
Thing?
Yeah, look at that.
That's right there, where he's got the cigar.
Smoke coming out of there. Look at that. The smoke coming right out of there.
Oh, speaking of, I did notice today reading that new Fantastic Four when Wolverine has something in his mouth.
Yep.
It's a pretzel stick.
It's a pretzel stick.
Go
Thanks.
yourself, Marvel.
Yeah.
I guess I owe Eglantine a quarter for gimmick infringement.
Yeah.
I was just Venkman had said something early in the beginning of this stream about the look and stuff, and one of the things I noticed is after Perez does these first two issues, I forget who takes over, some no name takes over for the next issue.
No, it's Buckler.
Buckler was no name to me. I'm a shooter kid.
Oh, Ash, I've got so much work to do.
But what I noticed was how well it blended. Like how it reminded me just how well Marvel used to do that when they would change artists. You didn't miss a beat. If you were a kid who didn't pay attention to who was drawing your book, you probably wouldn't maybe even notice, right? And not too much. And this is what made me stand out, because also this earlier George Perez work to me is not the George Perez that I knew, which was the late 80s style Perez, which had more of what I considered his style. This feels like Perez drawing a house style, and I was just curious if that's a correct assessment.
No, what it was if Joe Snow, I think that's how I pronounced it, was the inker on Fantastic Four for about 1,700 issues.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he inked Kirby, he inked Perez, and then when Buckler took over, he inked Buckler. I mean, he was, if there was a house style, it was Joe Snow's house.
So,
okay.
And
that makes sense.
He's generally regarded as one of the all-time greats, and he was. I mean, his career goes back, well into the golden age. But yeah, he had a distinct style that kind of worked. He's one of the few inkers that kind of made, if he didn't make you better, he didn't hurt you. I mean, there are some artists that, like, at the time this was going on, the Defenders had Keith Giffen with Klaus Janson inking.
Mm-hmm.
And it was beautiful until the first month Janson didn't ink the book. And you opened that up and said, what the F is this? Because then you realized that it was Janson making Giffen.
Yeah.
Because Giffen was just so scratchy and kind of trying to pay homage to Kirby, but didn't have the Kirby. It was missing something. But yeah, Joe Snow made everybody at least look good or look better.
Yeah, this is Vince Coletta actually doing the work with Perez
on the first one.
The first one, yes. I was saying I don't think I've ever know of them working together other than this.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you made, though, Eric. I just wanted to say, because I don't know why I didn't even consider that, I guess probably because it's been like 20 years since we've had inkers.
But
well, they used to matter, and that's something else. But that's a rant for another day.
That's another thing too. That's one of the reasons I like Spider-Man. I like the original Hulk style. Everybody made the character art look seamlessly. Like it didn't change. It wasn't until like especially Spider-Man until like the 90s and into 2000s where else the art drastically changed from being the Hulk style, which was Romita style. Because Ditko did it first, but then you saw Romita was copied by everyone out after that. So that's one of the reasons I was reading as I was reading Spider-Man through the years. I was like, oh man, you get the Humberto Ramos. It's like, what are you doing, bro?
You know why the Perez Coletta team worked so well? At the time, Perez wasn't big on doing backgrounds.
Yeah.
So Coletta could save time by not having anything to erase.
Yeah, with Kirby.
Oh, that's funny. That took me a second to get that joke. For those of you in the audience who may not be quite as familiar, Vince Coletta was notable like for erasing Kirby's work, and it went years, I guess, before like I think Kirby, like someone brought it to Kirby's attention or something. I forget that details on that, but
well, depending on who you believe, there were rumors that Vinny had connections, if you know what I mean.
Oh.
He had some friends, see.
Say. They get busted on tax evasion, say.
Well, you don't want to make me mad, see.
So now this is all interesting too, because they're going to go after the Hulk in this first issue, and Ben being a straight up macho man, he didn't like the way they handled it. He's like, because Sue put a invisible force field around the Hulk's head, keep the control his breathing so he couldn't breathe at all.
Right.
And then you get Reed holding on to him, and Reed's like, Ben, freaking get off your freaking ass, go over and punch him. And Ben's like, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. I don't want to, not this way.
Yeah, it's like it's not very sporting.
It's like, come on, Ben, really? What are you, freaking Wolverine now? It's like you got to have a challenge.
Yeah,
no, he was
raised on the streets. Like you fought fair and honorably.
Yeah.
And he has had, and this was a well-established, it was a rivalry, but it was also kind of a kinship, because they were both in their own way misunderstood monsters. Just that Ben got the better end of the stick because he retained his intelligence, so he wasn't hated and despised, but he could identify with the Hulk. So when they're holding him down like that, they said that kind of, and it was another way to put another seed of doubt in Ben's mind, because in these again, this is a well-written story.
Yeah,
because after he does it, when Reed puts his hand on his shoulder and says, good work, Ben, you were, and he goes, Reed, do me a favor, get your hand off my shoulder and shut up.
Yep.
I mean, it was, like I said, there's another nice little touch in this story.
That's because Reed is a little bookworm, nerdy boy. He never got in a fist fight. He didn't understand how you handle things on the streets.
He didn't have to. He was jacked.
The other thing I want to point out too, because was when he turns back into Banner. Banner's not a scrawny little nerd. Banner's still kind of jacked himself.
Well, that's funny. In those days, they would talk about skinny little nerds, but they would look like Michael Phelps or a gymnast.
They look like Peter Parker.
And it went all the way to like in the first Secret Wars. They're saying how they're making fat jokes about Volcana, who's built like a swimsuit model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they didn't know how to draw.
Everyone in comics is a swimsuit model.
Well, it's easier to draw a muscular figure than a skinny figure and make it look decent.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to be like the Blob or someone or Kingpin before they started actually drawing you like as a fat person back in these days.
The other thing is that when you got towards the end of the book here in the first issue, you look at Colonel Sellers. He's starting to look like Michael Knight.
I like when he called him Colonel Sanders.
Colonel Sanders.
Sellers.
He starts to say, Colonel Sanders. His name's Sellers. Whatever. I've heard it both ways.
So that was kind of cool too. I guess. Now if they did cartoons, I wanted it to be exactly like it happens in the comic book, because a lot of times they take cartoons, they change the liberties, they, especially today with Disney stuff. But the older Fantastic Four cartoons were really good. They actually adapted it exactly from the book, dialogue, everything, the 90s. So yeah, that's what I said. I agree. This is a very fun issue. The coloring, the narration, the dynamic is a Mr. Batman had said earlier. Is that every panel, every little picture was different, dynamic. It was,
and it had something to do with the story.
Yeah.
Now, in case anybody hasn't read this, obviously the end of the first issue is Ben frees the Hulk, and they decide to team up. So they're pitted against the other three members of the Fantastic Four. That's where 166 leaves off.
You want that last picture as a poster, don't you?
No, if I was going to have that, I'd want one of the umpteen 11-7 battles they've had.
you don't want the other one where he's just like gonna punch.
It is a good pinup though. Like I could see kids being really happy with that last page. That's definitely going to sell the next issue.
Like that should be a T-shirt, a white T-shirt, and they have that on the front. There you go.
A white shirt. I see what you're
Wow.
Wow, it is white.
Paranoid much?
Yeah. You haven't brought up anything tonight yet, so
why don't you just beg us to, like you just did there? Well, yes. Now,
ironically, though, there are no
reference alerts.
Wait, what?
Dated reference alerts.
Dated reference alerts? I didn't notice any.
You know it, buddy, like Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy.
Yep.
I had no idea what
that's
that
an
was.
Elton John album title.
Oh, okay.
And supposedly this whole entire tale takes place between 194 and 185 of the Hulk's own magazine.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, kids, that was when continuity was practiced at Marvel.
Yep. All righty.
Yep.
Cool. So, all right. Ironically, I also noticed that this whole entire issue had not had a single black person here, so no wonder Zach liked it. There you go, Zach. You get one.
Thank you. You're the best.
I have you on camera and in microphone saying that. I looked at that.
Now, the cover from 167.
Mm-hmm.
Jack
awesome.
Kirby had just come back to Marvel, and so for the first year he was back, he and the stupendously talented Gil Kane did virtually every cover at Marvel for that first year. This was one of the first Kirby covers after coming back. So
there is no shot on this.
Well, that's because this is a Kirby cover.
Oh, okay.
But the Hulk has a no shot, though.
Now, all these years ago, little 13-year-old Eric sees this on the shelf and says, "Wow, you got the Hulk in the Fantastic Four." Now, I think I only knew the Hulk from the cartoon, because my mom used to sing the theme song all the time. But so it's like, man, I gotta get this.
And they're on the St. Louis Arch of all places too.
Yeah, and those people have mutated into giant size.
I was gonna say, how are they gonna do that big to get out of that? Look at the arch and look at how big they are. I was like, oh my!
Go back to Fantastic Four 25. Where the Fantastic Four and the Avengers are fighting the Hulk on a skyscraper being built. They're taller than the floors.
Well, they're taller than the floors.
Not just giant,
here.
Man. I know. So I said,
if these people stood up, they would be taller than that building.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the architect, please.
Everyone's on their knees here, looking out the window.
Actually, look at some of these people. They're like cut off at chest waist.
Yeah.
I know.
Right there, chest right, just cut right here. It's like,
well, the one guy just got burned to a crisp by Johnny.
That too. And they're all wearing the same clothes. At least
yeah.
So.
Oh my God, this is This is definitely Zach's kind of arch. You had to bring it up, didn't you?
I did. Now I'm regretting
it. Instead of segueing, you're archwaying into that subject.
Oh, that.
Wow.
That deserves a 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everyone? Now I owe Ash a quarter.
I'm not allowed to do it myself anymore. Everyone else does it.
That's right. Now when you do it, I said, what are you doing ripping off those guys on the Kiki Puppet Show?
Look at how serious though, like on the cover with the little bubbles. It's got the headshots of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
They all got this like glowering it. Like,
you want to show the cover up so people can see?
Oh, sure.
Full screen, yeah.
Yeah. There you go. You can see kinda. I'm waiting for it to focus in. You see how big the people's heads are inside the St. Louis Arch. It's not focusing.
It's just you look at the arch and look how narrow it is. You know, it's just, and then they're way too tall to be fitting in there. They're like laying down if they are. How can you be? That is, they're like packed like sardines in there.
And if you think last issue's had a shocking ending, where do you see this one?
Yeah, I said now. Just Eric, I agree with you. Even me right now seeing that cover, that is pretty cool. I just the way the Hulk's drawn on there. You got the Fantastic Four stuff. I'm actually 13-year-old. You didn't notice how big those people were. You're just like Hulk, flames, Fantastic Four.
I will say, I said it's just. Yeah, I think that whether or not you stick around in this hobby has a lot to do with when you found it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and I came along at a time. I said, when Fantastic Four was going, hitting on all cylinders. I said, when the first one you pick up has the Hulk in it, then like a month later, you open up a book and you see a full page ad. Not that says Bendis is coming, but promoting a Spider-Man Superman crossover.
Right.
It's like, wow, I guess this hobby wants me to stick around, but stuff like this was definitely helped. So getting into the book, the Thing in the Hulk, they want to get out of the military installation, so they break a couple planes and
it's like over the top.
And then we steal a helicarrier.
Even before that, though. Now this is my first time seeing the Thunderclap ever done in a Hulk book. I'm sure he's done it before.
Oh yeah.
But see him doing that to Johnny and just knocking him out of the sky. And it's just and then Sue's using her her psychic power. She's basically creating a force shield that way, and you see the Hulk and thing just punching at the thing. It's just this is just all out suspense. This would have been ever been made into a movie, just using everything he has here, not ad-libbing at all.
Yeah,
holy crap, that'd have been like probably one of the best Fantastic Four movies we could probably get.
That would be a really good movie. Yeah, I'd watch that for sure.
I love this. I love this because I'm sure this is where you get this quote from, because I've heard you say this before. But the Thing says, "Keep hammering away, Hulk baby." I know I've heard Breen say that, use the term "baby," in that kind of sense before when you're in the Thing. That is just kind of funny because I don't read enough Fantastic Four, but hearing him just using the word "baby," it's like, come on, baby.
Well, you try to imagine a time when every issue of Fantastic Four had action like this.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to because it's this era. I mean, any issue you pick up, the 20 before, the 20 after, you're going to get, this kind of story. And like I said, it's
so. That's so the dialogue in this, and Susan, she's like, I can't hold. She's sitting there, she's holding her head, she's sweating. I can't hold the force for well any longer. And all of a sudden the generals, the colonel's sitting there, and then you got these guys. Hey, look, Zach, there's your first black soldier. He basically says like, sir, she's falling. What? No, he's like, you idiot. That means the force field's gone. Shoot the kill, pretty much. He's like, say, fire, shoot the Hulk. And the guy's like, yes, sir. I'm like, wow. It's like, I just how about they waited for orders. So it's like, and the colonel is just like, are you freaking kidding? I'm surrounded by assholes. It's like, it goes like the screwballs.
I like how too, this was during an era that where the Marvel superhero characters weren't just like living gods.
Yeah.
We see Reed like worried about the thing that they're shooting. He's like, oh, sooner or later those bullets are going to chip away at his armor. It's like nowadays they would just be invincible. Like Sue Storm, the idea of her shields coming down. No, she could probably stand against Thanos.
Right.
It's not interesting, but here you're like, oh man, she's like immediately she's getting tired. It's like she can stop a couple of punches. And so there's always that danger level, which helps really sell the conflict. I miss that. That's something that really stood out to me going back and reading.
Yeah, Sue, going forward with this, I'm not sure how many times they use her force field, where it's actually going against like forces as strong as the Hulk or the Thing. But I know in the 90s, the Tom DeFalco, I was reading that, and that's not as good as these. Yeah, but she was holding a dam together that was falling apart, at the point where she's about to drown and collapse, to save the rest of the Fantastic Four. And I love it when they actually give Sue a chance to strain her powers,
Mm-hmm.
But not where she's like a damsel in distress. That's the part I didn't like about some of the issues.
Yeah, something that just presents her with a challenge. Yeah.
Like this shows basically shows how strong she really is. Not where she's like, oh, I can't do this, and it's fades real fast. It's like, really?
Right.
It's like, how it's like, I'm invisible. Honestly, if this was real, this would have been the Harlem Fantastic Four. She'd be like, I'm invisible, out of here. But I love what I agree with you, Ash, when they show the straining stuff, but holy crap, I'm surprised this book isn't like $100. And just use the Hulk and the Thing is taking those planes, lifting them up, and then smashing. And you see the giant panel explosion there.
Mm-hmm.
Like that should be like
a great scene. Yeah.
Oh, that is great. Now I don't know if that's a two. I guess I'm assuming that's a 2-page spread, or is that just a single page?
I think it's just a single page. One where the Hulk and the Thing are smashing those planes together.
Yeah.
No, it's just a big panel.
Yeah. That would have been great though, as a big 2-page spread. Because that is cool. The artwork, the detail on that.
Well, nowadays that would have been a 2-page spread because it would have been so decompressed. But one other thing that stood out to me reading this book was just how much story you're getting in these books. Like it took me probably an hour to get through 2 issues.
Yeah.
Right. And I could have gone through fast if I wanted to speed read them and stuff, but I was trying to really appreciate them, back in, even today, but any comic book you should be, in my opinion, appreciating the art. I know a lot of modern comics sometimes don't have any, you just want to not look at the art, but it's a visual medium. And if you're writing a comic book and with no intention to have solid art, then you should be writing prose. You shouldn't. I don't really get that. I don't know how the industry has gone the way that it has. Now with indie comics, it's a totally different thing. I know sometimes people just have this dream of making comics, and sometimes you can't draw for anything, but you just want to make comics. Fine, that's great.
Yeah,
do your thing. But when you're in the big leagues, Marvel and DC are the big leagues, right? And so at that, every comic needs to have an adequate, more than adequate artist, and showing off that. And you should be taking your time to appreciate these panels. I think, too, back then, when we're looking at this book, this is clear how Marvel knew their audience, right? they knew that there were adults. I mean, reading these books, comics were really big in the military, but their audience, their primary audience, was kids, right? And they knew that if you're a 9-year-old boy reading a comic, your reading skills may not be up to par. In fact, a lot of kids, if you got into comics young, especially if you're boys, you got into it because you didn't have to read. And I know that from like experience. Like my very first comic, I don't recall like really reading it, but I just loved the pictures and I could kind of follow the story and I could read some of the words, so I could, I could follow along. And then as I got older and stuff, it would become more of a thing. And here, the story is fully told in the art. And I think also too with the method of storytelling, it just lended into that anyway, right? Because the writer would just come in and see the pictures and just write in what was happening.
I don't know if they were still doing that by this time. And
they were doing it in the 80s.
I don't think they were doing it on everything, though.
Not everything, yeah.
Now, what I do know, I don't know how many 9-year-olds were reading this. I'm sure there were a decent amount. But in these days, you read DC until you started getting pimples. And then you kind of graduated to Marvel as you got into your teens. So you could tell because the writers, and the reason I can tell this is read a Conway written book at Marvel and then read a Conway book at DC in the 70s. And it's definitely, it definitely aims at a younger audience at DC.
It's funny because that flip-flops in the 80s.
I agree,
when I got into comics, like DC was like your dad's comics. I mean, personally, like as a personal reference story, my stepfather, he was in comics and he was big, just DC guy. And he was always trying to get me into read DC. And I was like, the books you're reading, I'm like, these are so lame. Now, again, this is 13, 14-year-old Ash saying this, not nowadays. I have a bigger appreciation, but it follows along with that. Because I'm a middle-aged man, I look back at these old DC books. Like you look at the Wahaha Justice League, that was for adults. Like these were the guys that grew up loving comics. They grew old and then they started making the comics for themselves. And that seems to me what I thought DC became in the 80s.
Well, the Crisis, it was one of the things that it did was it kind of gave them a clean slate. Now Batman in the first half of the 80s was written for adults, straight up.
Yep.
I mean, corrupt politicians, human villains that could exist in the real world, even the supervillains, a lot of them. And it was very well done, and it jumped back and forth between the two books seamlessly. Green Lantern was very well done. And now DC had more good things going for them in the 80s, but by that time, reputations get so cemented that even though like the last 30 issues of The Flash revolved around him killing a man who was about to kill his fiance at their wedding the same way he killed his wife. And then there's like 20 issues was like leading up to the trial. And then that led into the Crisis. So great last 30 issues, but it was DC. So then the Crisis came, everybody got kind of like a fresh start. And like I said, the books definitely, it was like the perception of DC changed overnight. And as someone who's been around for almost 50 years doing this, I can appreciate those 70s DC books, and I can appreciate Superman from the 50s and 60s, as simple as they were. They're fun to read because they're comic book history now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as far as like, holding them up as great pieces of literature, not even a little bit. But Marvel, you can with even some of their earliest stories. Is you think about, there was no equivalent of Spider-Man 39 and 40, which was 1966. Same year we got the Galactus Trilogy, and I think we got I can't remember the if there's a name for it, story over in Thor. I mean, there were things happening 4 years into Marvel that were just amazing. Now, would the dialogue be written more sophisticated today? Absolutely. But the story, the concepts are just as, valid today as they were 56 years ago. You didn't have that at DC. But to quote my friend Mr. On Comics, I'm getting into the weeds now. So somebody pull me back into the story.
I just want to go quickly comment on what Ashley talking about. How it took him an hour to get through these stories.
Mm-hmm.
I started off, my first comic book was Amazing Spider-Man #1 because I got the collection, and so I was reading through the 40th anniversary collection, which I had, which basically could catch me up through everything, getting all the way up to the early 2000s, 2006. So I was reading that, and as I got into like the 90s, it's like you could see the dialogue and everything else was just kind of like dwindling away. It wasn't as strong as it was in the beginning. So there was same with the art, because you went into the different artists, different writers. The dialogue, the narration was not as heavy as it was in the very beginning. So I was like, I used to, it took me forever, because now I can say I can read go through like a bunch of issues within a day or two.
Mm-hmm.
Back then it took me a while. I was reading maybe if I was trying to catch up, so it'd take me I was reading probably 2 or 3 issues a night just to try and catch up, get to and it took me a while just to get to all through the years. That was in my early teens. So I was reading that stuff, and I agree, and as much as it was a chore to get through sometimes, because sometimes the issue wasn't as good as the previous, but compared to today's stuff, I would rather go back and read that stuff and then read some of the today's stuff, because it takes you not even 5 seconds to get through a whole entire book sometimes, because there's no narration. The dialogue is pretty much non-existent, or if it is there, like with Bendis, it has nothing to do with anything. It's just a guy monologuing for 15 minutes about nothing.
I am ready to monologue.
So
as Ash said, these are fun.
Yeah.
And now, for that reason, one of the reasons I never got into Fantasy Four it's mainly because I'm more of a single hero type person, but also I always thought that these were a little bit more intimidating. These were more heavy dialogue than versus some of the Spider-Man books. I felt these were more grown up for the Fantasy Four versus the Spidey person.
Now, if Roy had been paid by the word, he'd be a rich man.
Yeah, I was about to say there's a lot of dialogue.
Yeah,
but unlike the king of word vomit, Roy has something to say. I mean, if you read All-Star Squadron,
yep,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
that takes you an hour to read a single issue if you're paying attention. But there's no wasted dialogue.
Well, that's the thing too. It's people sometimes complain that these old books are like, oh my gosh, there's so much words, but it's like every panel in these older books is like a page in a modern book.
Yeah,
and so it's like a panel in a modern book when it has the same amount of words, but then you have to multiply that times 7. How many panels are in that page, or if it's a Tom King book and he loves the 9 panel thing, it's just it's overbearing. You're just saying a lot of nothing. It's true that there is a lot of words in these older books, but the book itself is dense by the time you close the last page. And that's another thing. These books are only 18 pages.
Mm-hmm.
They're 18 pages, but you feel like, oh my gosh, a ton happened.
You feel like you just read a trade paperback or something. Yeah,
exactly. Good point.
Yeah,
because you're basically getting a trade in each issue. Because in these days there were no such thing, so there was obviously you can't write for something that doesn't yet exist.
Yeah. The modern writers, a lot of them imagine themselves like film writers, so they write these panels like storyboards where it's he looks left, then he blinks, then he looks right, and you're just like, Jesus, I don't need to see. You're not animating this. It's right. One panel can get
And you know what he does when he looks right? He blinks again.
So the other thing I noticed about this too, Fantasy Four compared to the Amazing Spider-Man books, these are the lot of technology is very futuristic versus Spider-Man who just had the car or the plane. look at the jet that they're riding in Fantastic Four. We're going after the Hulk. The Reed's in there.
Mm-hmm.
That is very futuristic, as opposed to what the Hulk and Thing took. They took like a basically they call it they call it a hovercraft. It's basically a helicopter.
Well, it looked like one of the Shield's helicarriers, like a portable version.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's very futuristic as far as some of the vehicles they use and that stuff too. And I mean, it's because Reed's really smart, and I don't know if they've already dealt with the Skrulls, right? So they've dealt with aliens already, part of this. Yeah. So I'm sure they adapted some of their technology if they found any of the ship parts, Well, but I said compared to like Spider-Man is very close to being 60s, 70s.
In the next storyline, Power Man steals the Fantastic car. So if I can have the screen for a second.
Sure, you can have
That's not a stereotype that you'd want to put in a book or anything at all.
They go back to the original flying bathtub.
Oh, the bathtub! I love the flying bathtub.
That we haven't seen in years.
I'll take the flying bathtub over like that new one like they had in the movie where it's like the really futuristic, sleek, like with the Hemi.
Well, they actually
I'll take the bathtub over that.
Since we've completely gone off the rails, the Thing and the Hulk, they realize that the partnership isn't meant to be. Ben turns on the Thing or on the Hulk.
Yep.
They fight, and during the issue, Ben has felt funny, and he starts feeling real funny right when the Hulk lands his Sunday punch, and as he's turning at the time permanently back into Ben Grimm.
Yep.
That's the shock ending, because we're never going to get to it. But for those of you that want to know how it ended,
wow.
And he does remain Ben Grimm for the next 8 issues, and how he gets turned back into the Thing is a story for another day. But just in case we don't get back to the story, that's the surprise ending of this issue.
But right before the ending, the family confronts, the Thing and Hulk, and as this was interesting too, because I wonder how much he pulled back going against Johnny, because he just belted him. And he says the Thing swings a mighty arm, hurling his young foe away much like Rice from last week's wedding.
Yeah. Pretty much,
So tell me, Eric, is the real reason you love these comics so much is because you realize that the Thing looked just like you?
Oh,
what else?
I wasn't aware, but
Eric's
you weren't back when you were a kid. You didn't know you were going to grow up to look like this.
If anything, if you notice that, Zach's
I don't mean the Thing.
I
mean Ben Grimm without the stony.
Zach, I see it. You get your hair swooped over to the same side and everything.
That is Eric Breen.
My hair always looks like this. It's looked like this for the past 2 years.
Eric can't account for those 2 years.
All Zach needs to do is bleach his hair.
That's never gonna happen.
Yeah, there are 2 years I can't account for. You are right about that. That's
always looked like this.
But you notice, as the story unfolds, what finally makes Ben, he's been questioning his decision basically from the beginning.
Yeah.
And when the Hulk starts trying to pound Reed through Sue's force field, that's when he realizes, hey, it's not real smart. He goes, excuse me, but isn't that my pal you're trying to clobber?
Yeah.
And that sets off the fight. And
he throat checks him in the
again, like I said, one of the things that's been a couple of rules that have been firmly established at Marvel that I'm sure are completely ignored today, was that you could never have a clear-cut winner between the Hulk and Thor. But the Hulk versus the Thing, it was not hammer and nail, because the nail puts up a much better fight when he's the Thing. But again, the only time he ever won a fight was when he had the Hulk's brain in his body, and his savagery was enough to win. Because that was another thing that said that with the Hulk, his savage nature, the madder Hulk gets, the stronger Hulk gets.
Right.
And that's, that was like, again, those are those kind of the rules Marvel had established that they held to for the first couple of decades of their comics. So this fight
rules.
Yeah, there was even a handbook for them.
Wow.
But this was so this fight ended the way they all did. Only the difference was, like I said, the Thing's gamma radiation eventually canceled out the Thing's cosmic radiation. The Hulk's gamma canceled out Thing's cosmic.
Batman, he did. He throat checked them. You know, if you're talking about, I'm not sure if you're talking about the Johnny versus Ben, or you're talking about Ben versus Hulk. But no, he did belt Johnny too.
But there you have it, kids. 2 issues that would, take a year today.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna follow this up with a rare sequel of sorts, and do the next 3 issues.
Nice. So.
And Zach, if you need to take a hiatus for those next issues, I can fill in for you.
Oh, that's funny. That's hysterical.
Ash,
it's funny. We're actually
welcome to the Kiki Puppet Show.
So that's 168 through 170.
Yes.
You know what's kind of funny? We're actually looking for an issue to read tomorrow since Puppeteen's gone and we can't read Jameson.
I will not be available tomorrow. I actually have I'm gonna have a work appointment that I'm gonna have later in the evening. I gotta pay the bills, man. I gotta pay the bills.
He's got the skills to pay the bills.
Exactly.
What time do you get back?
It's gonna be like
wine and dine with kings and queens. He's been in the eye eating pork and beans.
Wow.
It'll be. I mean, shoot. I'll get back. I'm carpooling with my dad. We'll be getting back at his house around 8 o'clock, and then I'll still have to drive back home from there. So, don't know. Could be around 9 o'clock.
All right. I guess this might be a tight knit crew for tomorrow's reading.
I'm good with taking a night off and just waiting for rest my voice for.
There you go. Save it for the rawhide. Save your throat for the rawhide, kid.
Brian's got to make himself a nice
glass.
I hate myself so much.
Brian, are you gonna make some lemonade from tomorrow?
Oh goodness.
Because that book's gonna be a little bit tart.
Oh, you scamp.
So what in this book did they come to the conclusion it's the gamma rays that the Hulk gives off?
Yes, because remember
them back into Ben Grimm.
Remember, Doc Bruce Banner, belted by gamma rays, turns into the Hulk. Mm-hmm. Ain't he on glamour rays?
Gotcha.
When you think about it,
that's what my mom used to say.
How come this phenomenon doesn't continue? And
yeah, like you would think that the Thing and the Hulk couldn't be around each other then, because he would he'd revert back to Ben Grimm, or vice versa. He might want the Hulk around, so
or the next time maybe he had built up an immunity to it. That it was like one of those one time, because something that would make a great discussion for a live stream, where all of the really inventive ways that superheroes have come up with to stop supervillains, why they didn't just use that again the next time the supervillain popped up.
Yeah. Like, why doesn't Spider-Man still just vacuum up Sandman?
Or, like there was a time in Avengers 11 where Spider-Man made wings out of his webs to hold himself up. 10 years later, he gets dropped out of a plane and he webs himself into a ball and bounces off the ground and damn near kills himself. Why didn't he make the wings again?
Yeah.
Why didn't this happen every time they interacted? There had to be a reason. I'm sure if we ever get Roy on the show, he could explain it.
Maybe it was like one of those times where all the many times that Reed would try to cure Ben Grimm, and then the cure would never work. But maybe what he did was make it so he was resistant. Like his cure messed up his ability to be.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something very easy.
Because there's that conspiracy theory, right? That Reed keeps Ben as the Thing, and he just lies to him and doesn't actually cure him.
I did not know that was a thing.
I'd love to get Roy Thomas on the channel so I can see who's gonna take over after he passes away.
No, we wouldn't say that to Roy.
No.
We don't say that to Roy.
Roy's actually 81 years old, so I
You
mean,
shouldn't say that to any comic pro after the year we've had.
That's
No, it was
true.
bad-
That
it was
is
bad.
actually, yeah, Ash makes a
It was
good
bad
point.
enough when Englentine said it to Mike Barron. I mean,
I know.
shit, he's 70. And that's painful enough for the
Roy
young
Thomas
writers
being
who
on a
last started in
podcast
70.
or anything like that, it's like you got to go through some hoops and some.
Oh yeah, I said, hell, he's I mean, I've seen him do interviews with people that aren't any higher on this YouTube sphere as we are, but
yeah,
I bet
I'm sure
Jimmy
there were
could get him.
connections.
Probably. Jimmy's interviewed some people.
Jimmy can pull out some phenomenal interviews.
Roy looks like the guy who would just sit there and he'd have a lot of stories to tell you, and he's just happy to be there.
Oh, I would.
Never met him though. Could be totally different.
Never been starstruck. Never really. It was never. I never wanted to meet Stan Lee. I mean, it would have been nice, but I would never have gone out of my way.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to meet Roy Thomas because, like I said, he's the only living member of my comic book Mount Rushmore, and just all the things. Because Stan,
such a hater. Stan
had an eye on Hollywood way earlier than it made any sense. And to his credit, he kept plugging, and eventually, I'm sure he had some hand in it getting done. Roy Thomas, his passion has always been comics, and he's one of the few people that I can think of that just that's all he ever wanted was to make this hobby the best it could possibly be, and he's found ways to do that into his 80s, and I'm just more than impressed by that.
So what if it was Roy Thomas? They played for the Cardinals. Do you want to interview him?
Which Cardinals?
St. Louis.
I don't recall Roy Thomas playing for the Cardinals.
Yeah, Roy Thomas, born 1953. He's played during the 70s and through the 80s. You don't know your
All right.
Cardinals?
Anyways, back to
I would dispute that.
I didn't realize we were here to talk baseball, Vinkman.
That went way out to left field.
I'm going to prove him wrong here. I see what you did there, Ash. Went way out to left field.
See, this is what happens when you bring up baseball around Bernie.
Yep. Who's on first?
All right, everyone. This is now turned into the baseball.
1978.
In the second half.
Pitched for the Cardinals.
All I can do is quote who's on first. That's all. Or the Sandlot. Those are my contributions.
There was an outfielder in 1910.
Well, if he was a pitcher, he was probably maybe he was just like a fifth.
He earned a win by pitching 2 scoreless innings.
Pitcher, I barely know her.
Oh, he earned a win. Yeah, he's probably a bullpen guy.
He was 20-11 in his career.
Yep.
Oh. He played not even a full season's worth of games.
No, I got to admit that one has slipped down the memory hole.
Yep.
And you only know that because it came up when you Googled Roy Thomas comic creator. You fuck.
He sucked you right in like he was Spider-Man and you were Sandman.
No, you could have stopped that sentence if he sucked.
Nope. He got you.
So next week on the retrospective, we'll talk about what Marvel used to do before they started race swapping everybody. They used to replace them actually instead of race swapping.
There you go. I'm actually really curious to read these because I knew that Luke Cage had been a member of the Fantastic Four because it's been brought up several times in the Bendis New Avengers and everything, but I never actually knew where Luke Cage had stepped into the team. So that'll be exciting. That'll be cool to read.
All righty, cool. I think that's it for the night, though. Unless anybody else is going to talk about Fantastic Four stories or what, or Brain when you were a boy,
When I was a boy.
All right, I'll throw a little banner up there so people want to know if you like this content, please click like and subscribe. And if you want, we accept donations, small or big. Or not at all. The money goes towards to basically, for the Marvel and DC apps that we subscribe to. That's what we use for reading on your channel. And, plus it also helps Sticky Long Fingers, deal with all the drama of having long fingers. Freak Shoe Long Fingers.
I really hate that name.
Fine.
It's so creepy. It's like
Pick-
Slender Man.
Pixel
What?
Scissor Hands is better.
No, they're both bad. Yeah, every time you say that, too, the image is just like burned in my head of what his
So
fingers
long
look like.
fingers or sticky long fingers.
Ugh. They're like talons. They're like bird claws.
Yes,
Ah.
yes.
Well, we didn't make them freakishly long.
We did not. This is true.
Jackson, really quick. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. You missed it. But he says,
Jackson, I'm like you. The Fantastic Four were my first Marvel
Yeah,
comic title, actually, when I got into Marvel Comics. Because actually, you know what got me into reading them? It's that movie that nobody likes to talk about, really, but the Tim Story
Van
movie.
Forstick?
No, not Van Forstick. The one before that, with Jessica Alba and Michael Chiklis and Chris Evans. Yeah, I loved that movie when I was a kid.
I love that one, and I love the Roger Corman one.
My only gripe with Fantastic Four movies was instead of just putting Michael Chiklis in a rock suit, they should have CGI, because Ben's not huge, but he's bigger than 5'8".
Yeah, he's bigger than he should have been. Yeah, they kept him the same size. They just made him rocky. The thing is, like, there is a size difference both in width
CG
and height.
at that back then though wasn't
That's
as
true, too.
up to date, because you remember how Silver Surfer turned out in the second
Yeah,
film.
but you could still have, the 2003 Hulk movie was before that.
That's true.
Yep.
And I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. I mean, Tobey Maguire looked like he was web slinging through the city.
Yeah, but the Hulk movie, they pulled out all the punches. Yeah, see what I did there?
Yeah.
That was Ang Lee, like right after his Academy Award win. Like they were going for a big A-list film. The Fantastic Four film was just Fox phoning it in, like every other attempt that they've done.
It's true.
True.
It's just Fox going, "Hey, we're going to lose this license. Quick, make a film."
And for the fans of the Phase 4 Marvel, they're going to have a Thanos level threat. And people are saying Galactus. And I said, great, Cloud Point 2.0.
It's, first of all, it's
Kang the Conqueror. They already got him. He's right there in Loki.
It's Kang the Conqueror is the next big bad.
If this is not Kang after Loki, what they do, I'm going to be so pissed.
I don't think it's going to be Kang. I think it's going to be something else.
It's going to be Kang. They've said it's going to be Kang.
Kang is going to have to be an actual good guy who's misunderstood, because they've already done the thing to him that kind of makes him no longer qualified to be a villain.
And if you're going to have Kang, bring back Tony Stark, because I like Tony Stark defeating Kang. I don't want Rhodey in the Iron Man suit.
Well, you're not
so wait, so we're gonna have to have Iron Man. We're gonna have to have Iron Man defeat the ultimate bad guy again.
Yes.
No.
To prove that he's not a villain.
He's
dead. Tony's not a villain.
He's dead. He can't be a villain if he's dead.
The multiverse has been,
and they're not going to get Tom Cruise to play a multiverse Tony, which still kind of bums me out.
I don't want Tom Cruise.
I do. Heck yeah, I want Tom Cruise in there playing multiverse Tony Stark. Yes,
now look,
please.
if they put an interim villain in before they get to the Kang, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
So if you want to do a story, if you do Galactus, it needs to be like a one movie thing. I don't want to see this like build up. I want to see like the coming of Galactus story.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it verbatim, but inspired by that story of, and you could, that would be a great way to introduce the Fantastic Four. Throw in Silver Surfer. They have Galactus setting up his planet-eating contraption in New York. It could be visually, it could be so amazing if they could pull this off right. I do not want to see Galactus be this like 7-movie spanning nonsense.
We're gonna have the Age of Apocalypse.
I would settle for 2 movies with Galactus. But yeah, 7 is too much.
I mean, he could come back again because obviously Galactus, you eventually, if you do a Fantastic Four movie correctly and you do that Galactus, then you've set up a potential for doing a Silver Surfer standalone film.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And I would like to see Silver Surfer tied in possibly with Guardians and Thor. Like I want to see more cosmic stuff. Like
yeah, definitely.
So then you could revisit Galactus again later. But
I mean, they've already with Captain Marvel's success, they've already set up they have the Skrulls and having Fantastic Four. See, I know. Actually, the next one is I've already decided it's gonna be Secret Invasion.
You know what's really gonna suck is by the time they get to Doctor Doom, there's not gonna be any classic Marvel characters left.
There's no heroes left.
It's like, well, no, seriously, like all all the like Chris Evans would be like, or not, it's not Chris Evans, sorry, Chris Hemsworth would be like, I'm done. Like all the classic actors would be like, I'm aged out, I'm done.
Yeah,
You know,
true.
and it's just
here's how you solve everything. Secret Invasion. The Tony that died, the captain, that's gone. Those are Skrulls.
No, because
how
they
you
revert
solve
back to
everything
being a
is the-
Skrull when they die. If
Did-
that was
did you
Tony
not
Stark,
watch-
yeah.
Did you not watch Loki? That's how you solve everything.
All right.
What's that? The TVA?
Yeah, like now there's
Yeah.
actually different multiverses. It's just not just one line, which is why in Doctor Strange, the Wanda story, which I won't spoil, but that exists the way. So there's potential of using Wanda in that fashion.
But then you have to get the actors to come back, and I don't know that there's too many of the original cast members. that
Did
wanna
you
come
pay
back.
attention to Loki? Because not every Loki was the same actor.
That is true too.
I
But
low
do
key didn't
do you
know.
really-
We
you
could
really
have
think-
Alligator Iron Man.
We'll have Black Iron Man. Don't worry about it.
Well, we're already getting Riri Williams. So
No, we're gonna
that.
get
That's true.
Tropic. We're getting Tropic Thunder. Robert Downey Jr. confirmed.
You are getting Riri Williams. Look, Batman is even telling us to move on. We've been in the cosmic.
All right. Yes. We're actually at the highest we've been since 11 people. That's great. We're leaving. Everybody tunes in to make sure we leave.
That's what happens when I start going to
Get
on
out
my
the
rants.
door! Get out the door!
Everyone's like, "Hey, quick, come see Ash."
It's actually it's because
Kidding.
MK
Ain't nobody
decided.
say that.
I know.
No.
I'm just deluding myself so I can feel good.
Hey, what's up, MK? He just got done watching a baseball game. That's why he wasn't watching us. He was watching baseball instead.
Yeah, screw that.
Watching the Yankees.
Yankees, screw the Yankees. Red Sox all the way.
Yep. So, that's it for our retrospective. Yeah, next week will be the next reissues of Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four. Woo.
168,
3 issues next time, huh?
169,
3.
and 170.
All right.
69! I had to. I'm sorry. That's in my contract.
You are the youngest here. That makes sense.
I am the
Okay.
youngest. Yeah, that's true.
All right. That's it. Anything else,
All
you
right.
guys? Any final thoughts? Nothing? Any
Any
plugs?
No, I will just keep this thing going forever. So let's
Yeah,
just
check
wrap it up.
Check out Ash on Comics channel. He's back. He's got comics. He films hamburgers.
Make
Don't
sure
wa-
you're
don't-
eating a hamburger
don't
when you
watch
watch
it.
his videos. All.
Don't watch it on an empty stomach.
I haven't really done anything.
No, wait
so
a second. Don't
get
watch it on a
hyped.
full stomach either. Watch it.
it.
Watch it like 3 hours after you've eaten and 2 hours before you're going to eat again.
There you go. It's like swimming in the pool. Make sure you've already eaten, but there's a distance of time.
That's what
Yeah.
I need to do. I need to make a video where you eat along with Ash. So you get your burger. Everyone gets their burgers. We all just stream and
You're
eat
gonna
burgers
do-
together.
That sounds like
Hey,
it's one
wow,
step
40
away.
minutes later, this is just like one of Ash's old videos.
Ash is like one step away from becoming the next Doug Ernst, where he's like eating pizza or something while reading comics.
Yes.
Like 1 or 2 steps away from being the next Doug
yes.
Ernst.
Except I don't put my burger anywhere near my comic. So
Okay. Well, that's the
That's a-
one step that you're away from.
right, Doug.
You
Doug,
drove fast,
Doug
really.
is crazy.
You see how fast he drove home? He had the burger in his lap, and then that second he was at home.
I know.
He teleported.
Got a fast car.
Yep.
The Mini Cooper goes fast. He just goes.
They do.
It just goes around all of the big cars.
Did you see the Italian job? Those things move.
So he hit a
Dude, that's
curb.
what made me fall in love with the Mini. This is the best car commercial ever.
Yeah, the Italian job is a great film.
Until
Side
you hit-
note, check out the Italian job if you haven't already.
I just want to say, Ash, it was nice to have you back on the video
Yes.
circuit.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Oh,
It
yeah.
wasn't much of a video, so no one in the chat should get too hyped. But there is a burger in there. You will if you
I
like
don't
looking
like-
at burgers.
Kiki
So
Puppet
my
Show got
question
3
is,
shout
though,
outs.
you were gaining subs while you were inactive. You do a video yesterday. How many subs have you lost?
Dude, as soon as I released the video, I lost a sub. I was like,
Oh
"Damn
no!
it." I was like,
I waited 6 months to do this. Unsub.
The guy got a
but I
notification.
got
He's like,
I got a
wait,
couple.
He's like,
The
wait,
guy
I
probably,
didn't
he
sub to
probably
this
forgot he was following Ash. So he's like,
guy. Yeah.
I saw Ash's latest tweets. I'm unsubscribing. now."
Right? They're like, what? I'm still subbed to this jerk? I can't believe it.
All right, guys,
All
let's
right.
see you tomorrow on I Love Comics for part 3,
4.
4. of hey, our buddy Rawhide Kid.
The Rawhide Kid. What?
Oh, man, I love me some Rawhide Kid.
This
And
version, you
then-
don't want him near kids at all.
No.
See
Keep
you,
it away.
See you tomorrow.
Good night, guys.